Just, I know we didn't email about it, so.
All right. Here we go.
Hey, welcome, guys.
Here we go. All right. Hey, Christine, how you doing?
I'm good. I just got some lunch delivered, so I was scarfing that down.
Good for you. Good for you. We are. We're at the mid annual season break, right? So I've got sessions on Sunday and Tuesday still. And then,
Oh, wow.
And then I get a couple of weeks off, and then we back at it. But man, it's super gratifying. 90% of my teams are having like banner years, record years.
Yeah.
And I get I don't take credit, but they give me credit for that, and I really enjoy that. That I can't help it. So that's been super good.
Awesome.
Super fun, yeah.
Nice. Well, let's see. We've got a smaller group here today. So we're going to tell you the plan, and then I'd love for you guys to write into chat and let us know kind of what you're going through right now and if this is helpful. So we have something prepped on Cascading 90. So it kind of goes through like how you're going to introduce it to your teams, taking you through the state of the company, making sure managers are trained. You've got a process for new hires, things like that. Is that helpful? Have you guys already gone through this process and we can pivot to something else? Like Jim said, he's been deep into annual season. So there's a ton of tools we could cover. We could talk about annual meetings. Just want to make sure this is the best use of time for you guys. So if you want to talk about Cascading 90 and those couple topics around making sure you guys get a good state of the company, we can talk about customizing meetings for your individual teams, things like that. Go ahead and give me like a yes or a thumbs up or anything in the chat. I just turned on the chat, I just realized. So you got that going now.
Good.
Yeah, thanks, April. And then if something else is on your mind, feel free to throw that in there and we can cover that topic too, or instead.
Yeah, and I guess I wanted to, I like this topic in general because I think, Christina, I think a lot of teams, especially the self-implementing teams, miss out on how valuable it is to cascade.
Right.
Cascading, just to make sure everyone's clear on this. This is when we take what we do, and the focus of whether you if you're on EOS, it's like Get a Grip and Traction are really about the leadership team.
Right.
And that's really what EOS implementers focus on, and scaling up same way, Pinnacle same way. I mean, all of the operating systems that are, most of them are leadership team focused, but I've had so many experiences now where the companies that really have phenomenal results are the ones that figure out that they have to cascade. They have everybody on the same program, including and if you're entrepreneurial and you have some thought about retiring or selling your business someday, you've got to have this notion of enterprise value starting to apply in your head, and having the entire company operate on a common language, a common cadence, all the common rituals, artifacts, and language that go along with having an operating system. There's no better way. So the company I was just with, they were just acquired. And the reason they acquired this company was partly for the part of the market they were serving and some of the technology they had, but it was also because they say, we want to learn to operate like the mature way that you guys operate.
Yeah.
And it was really part of I haven't had as clearly an interaction where the enterprise value of having an operating system was more clear, where you can't just pretend that this is about executives making decisions. It has to be about making sure that everybody, that all that thinking cascades down, and all of the opportunities for stuff roll back up. If regardless of whether we talk about that much more today, I want to advocate for that. It should have, and I think this is something we can talk about a bit too, Christine, because most of my clients, they don't have 100% of the employees in 90 or
Right.
As far as, because let's be frank, 90 doesn't have great tools for the people working on the lines.
Right.
People shoveling, ditches or turning wrenches. We don't have a lot for them.
Right.
But anybody that has anyone reporting to them should be in the software, because that's, especially when you get down further, they need more support for doing what they do, and 90 can do that for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it sounds like the topic definitely resonates with more than a few people. So let's dive in and chat about Cascading 90. So we have this prepared. April, I love your question around like if vendors are using this too, because throughout this presentation, we can even go into within your individual teams. A weekly meeting might not look the same on a marketing team as it does a sales team, as it does the leadership team. So we'll go through how to customize it. And we've done that in the past with vendors we've used too, created a team of 90, like treated them like they're an internal employee, and it helps everything run really smoothly with your current operations.
Absolutely.
So agenda, we'll do a quick intro. Talk about Jim, you kind of hit this, like why it is important to get through the whole company, but we'll chat a little bit about that and then get into
I'm gonna hit it a couple of times. I mean, it needed to sink in, right?
Yeah. 7 times, right?
7 times.
All right. Well, I'm Christine, head of client success. And then Jim, what's your intro today?
Yeah,
what's your fun fact?
I'm both part of the partnership team, so I work with our coaches. I see some of our coaches are here today. Thanks for your support. And across all the operating systems that we support, we love to see you all. But I'm also a coach because I think it really helps me keep the saw sharp, as we like to say. And gosh, I've got so much. Like I said, I'm really on fire from these last couple of annuals I did, and seeing how the impact of really taking this seriously and cascading it really matters. So, but I'm here to help with concepts, Q&A, and bringing the what's happening out on the street back to the meeting. So,
awesome. Well, why engage your whole company?
Yeah, it says, I mean, so, and Gino says this, is that EOS is about aligning all the human energy within the business. But I think it is a pure Ginoism. But it is true. I mean, you want to make sure that everybody has a common thought of where things are going, a common way of getting there, a common way of speaking. I mean, this is really goes back to that notion of you want to create a culture inside your business. We know your business has a culture. Does it have an accidental culture? Does it have an intentional culture? Does it have a well integrated and supportive culture? And that's what the operating system is supposed to do. The operating system is how we operationalize having a high performance culture. And the only way to do that is a leadership team that gets all of the energy. Typically, they're closest to the sun. That's my little image there. Quite on purpose. Everyone on the leadership team there has the shape of not a bro. But as you get further away, you've got people that are less sophisticated, more than likely. They're people that need most support, that you need most to be able to support and becoming great leaders. And so they need that coaching. They need that framework that a business operating system has. And certainly the best framework for that is 90. 90 keeps everybody on the guardrails. Everyone that comes to us from doing it on PDFs or spreadsheets or whatever, says, "Oh my God, now I can focus on what's important as opposed to managing paperwork." And so, you can imagine, you get further and further away from the sun. The like second or third tier down the org chart. These people need more of that around them so they can really focus on what's most important. And quite frankly, there's more of them than you. So if you wanted to just align that and that all the energy in the business, if there's 5 people on the leadership team, if there's 50 people in the company, why would you keep 90% of your company away from having all the things that are part of this? And it's both things. It's a business operating system and it's the software. So like I said, the software probably not going to be for that bottom tier of your organization. That's fine. But the people they're reporting to, you want them in the software. because that's how they're going to be able to stay connected to their long-term goals, connected to the short-term goals, and be able to report back up and down, have the data around them to be able to make great decisions. Yep, culture, rituals and artifacts. And I usually say rituals and artifacts in the language, but
Yeah.
Because language matters. Important things have names, Christine. That's what we learned to say, Chris and I, long ago. One of our mentors, Richard, taught us that important things have names. And the number one job for all the leaders in your organization is to be leaders, building leaders, building leaders. You've got to be doing it. The only way we're going to grow is through delegation. And you want to delegate to people that are ready to lead, that are ready to take on more responsibility, whether that's because there's some people reporting to them or just lead initiatives. I mean, those are both forms of leadership. Even if you're like, I never want to have anyone reporting to me. Yeah, but you want to be able to have to manage your own destiny and be able to participate in the direction of the company at some point as you gain insight and knowledge. And if you don't take that type, at least that type of leadership, you've got nothing to complain about. Oh, these people don't really understand. Well, learn to be a leader, participate in the conversation, and take us where we want to go. That's how you be a good team member.
And I feel like we get the question a lot of like, does everyone need to be in this? Like, why? What's the point? Like, my leadership team is running the business. Why do other people need to be involved? And I feel like companies often realize, like, once they're in there, it's so much easier. The more you go down, you think it's going to be more work, but it helps the right issues bubble up. It helps get like the right rituals, artifacts, language in front of people. So like you're promoting your culture, whether you're hybrid, remote, in person, whatever it is. So it's so important to make sure like you eventually get there, even though it does feel like a lot of work.
Every single client I've ever had, Christine, has complained about, hey, we ask what's working, what's not working at the quarterly. They're always saying, oh, communication's a problem. And I always like lean it. No, you don't get to say that with me. You know that. You tell me where communication broke down, because I can go help solve that. And the operating system is based on making the communication easier. So I get to crystallize my vision at the top and be able to make it easier and easier to cascade it all the way down so everyone can see how they participate in it, whether they're leaders or just simply followers. And I've got a way for them to bubble up issues and have them figure out, come all the way back up. That communication lines and keeping everyone aware of what everyone else is doing, left hand, right hand doing, what we say perfectly connected. A lot of what we'll talk about today when we get into meetings is like, that's the point. You need to have meetings to keep everyone perfectly connected. That is the point, not just how many meetings we have to have. Well, how many do you need to keep everyone perfectly connected today?
Right.
And ask that and make that judgment every quarter. So
and it's fine to evolve. It doesn't have to be like it is forever. You got to continually adjust.
We'll go back and ask the question every quarter. Are we doing the right things? And every part of the operating system has the challenge questions. Is this still right?
And that's maybe one thing I would add to this list, because these things to consider are really thinking about with this initial launch, this initial cascading of 90 or your operating system in general. Like, you've got to have your state of the company meeting. You've got to get your managers trained. You've got to have a way that HR is pulling new people onto the bus that you've now started rolling. But adding on here, like, how are you reevaluating things? Like, what does your annual and your quarterly look like? Making sure that's a part of this whole process that your managers know and it's brought up at the state of the company, I feel like is also a really important point.
I think I've really enjoyed, as we've been, figuring out the best way to talk about this in a more universal way. Now we have all these operating systems. It's a notion of creating the focus filters for all the parts of the organization, so that people are asking the right questions. In our practice at Impact Architects, we've been saying for a long time, if you ask the wrong questions, you always get the wrong answers. So it's about figuring out what the right questions are, and then make that part of our natural rhythm, our natural way. Build that muscle in, so we're always asking the right question. And challenging the things we thought were right yesterday. New information comes in. Do we know how to insert it back into what we're doing and make adjustments? So that change management isn't about like, we got to turn all the way over here. It's more about we're just taking gradual moves. We're not jerking everybody around, and we're reassessing, and we're bringing everybody with us. If everybody's on the operating system, everyone gets to follow along and then give feedback in a very natural way. So we do have this handout that we created for our EOSIs at one point to be able to share with their clients. We also have another, I think I created a presentation since the last time we did this event. That is that I've also got a Loom for. So if people want to have some more of these resources, chat in on the app, and everyone on that knows to. Oh, Jim's offered more resources again. Damn it! I'll make sure everybody's. I'll take it to do.
That sounds
sure
great.
They got it before they start asking for it.
And we'll go through each of these points and just kind of talk about what you can do in your company and then how that translates into 90 specifically. So we'll add on to this list as we're going through, make sure we cover like those quarterly and those annual meetings of how you can be talking about readjusting with your team.
Yeah, because we'll talk about the disciplines of cascading, but
Yeah.
we've built the software specifically to make it easier is the thing. So it's that we're the tool to help you execute the discipline of cascading.
Yeah. And that definitely applies to the state of the company. And so this is something that you need to set up, whether it's in person or you're doing it on Zoom or your video platform, whatever it is. And you're trying to like share your vision for the first time. So you're talking about your core values, you're talking about all of these concepts, this journey that your leadership team has been on. And it's great to like actually assign out some reading. Like if the rest of the organization is genuinely curious or wants to get involved, like they can even read Traction to understand more deeply. But for our state of the company, we do these once a quarter, and we share 90. So we pull up our vision. We have a presentation as well, but things are directly in there. And so people know where to go and access it really at any point without having to like wait for this official company event to like see the accountability chart or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think these are, and everything that we hear, I mean, this really comes from all kinds of people doing it. There isn't canon in the EOS world for exactly how to do state of the company, but
right.
Both or any of the other operating systems, as far as I know, they all talk about you need to reassert, to recommit. That is one of the rituals. You have to have that gathering around the campfire of our values every quarter. And it's really, and that's a place we start. We say, bring those core values to life. Your core values speech is what Gino called it. But every system has core values since the very beginning, since Peter Drucker days. We've always talked about core values. But what you do with them, are we doing everything we can to hire, fire, review, and reward with this, is really about making sure that we all feel it every day. And this is one of those places where you definitely want to bring it back to life. Having the founder or the leader of the organization talk about, and folks, let's remind ourselves what our core values are and why they're so important to us. And I even just thinking about it, Christine, I love our core values so much that I can make myself cry talking when I do an interview and I'm come through core values. For me, it's a very emotional thing because I really feel like part of the power of our organization is we really do live these core values, and giving everyone a chance to realign to those things is an important part of it. And every time you're going to get better and better at it. So yeah, and you'll have new examples of like remember when that person did that thing, that was definitely living that core value, and doing other thing that person left because they didn't get the core value. They're a good person. We hope the best for them, but gosh, man, they weren't going to live the core value. So they just can't be an A player here.
And I feel like that's so important to remember. If you have never done a state of the company before, these are great things to hit. Yep. Talk about your core values, explain them in depth. You're probably going to create some sort of core values speech that, you can go ahead and press play for the new person that's been hired. You want to talk about your vision. But as you continue to move quarter to quarter, I really like what we've done internally, where we've let other people talk. It's not just one person talking the whole time. For core values, we do core value shout outs. So we go around the room and, people can chime in, and it's very informal, but it's great to hear stories. And then we do departments by departments where it's like you can go through and see what are the rocks you hit, what were the big milestones. And so I think it's a great time to let people share really across the organization.
So if you haven't done it, it's because you think it's hokey, and maybe it is, but it works. Okay. So all of my clients that didn't do it before, and it took a little while for them to get them there, they all come up with amazingly beautiful, graphics around their core values and official things they do it. So when I had my annual with one of my clients, and they gave me one of the core value cards, a little thing on it.
Oh,
So when you
yeah.
give someone a core value shout out, you actually give them a card. And
Oh,
so
cool.
people are lining up the cards around their desk, like every time they get a core value shout out. So
Nice.
because they're an in-person company, but
Yeah.
I got the community core value from my client. I really appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Um,
All right. So like I said, you can make the resources that you might share in the state of the company available to everybody, whether you want to do it before or after. So what we typically see is people inviting everyone in their account as observers. So let's go take a look at that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about sharing the vision, and then also sharing your accountability chart with those observers.
yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, and dig into this, because it's a great place to make it available to everybody. But at the same time, you've got a lot of fine control about what's visible and what's not visible, and how you think about, like, this is this display I want everyone to see.
Yeah.
So,
and so on here, you can go ahead, when you add a person, just select their role as observer, and you'll notice this is a free option. So you're not paying for people. They can come in, they have view only access, and it's only on the team that you give them access to. So maybe you want to create a sort of like all hands kind of team if there's not a specific one that they should individually be on as well.
which is a great thing to do, because then you can build all hands meetings, whether that quarterly, into that team, and then everyone just knows to show up there.
Yep.
And they can all participate in it. By the way, if you use our weekly meeting template, you can actually all join the software at that point too, which is pretty hot.
Yeah. And with that, they can see processes. So if you've built out process, they'll have access to that. They'll have access to responsibilities, accountabilities. And then they'll also have access to that vision page that you've built out. And so this one, you can see, I've edited this a bit. If you haven't explored our new edit vision feature, and you want me to go through it, just throw them in the chat and I can give you a quick tour. And in terms of sharing, go ahead and just toggle on this share with all teams. And that's going to make sure that you have access, that each team in your dropdown is going to have access to the leadership team VTO. And if you don't want them to have access to any specific section, you can cascade individual sections to your other teams. So like these, as an example, I'll go ahead and turn on. And then if I go to another team, it's just going to automatically cascade those two, and I can't type anything in here.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think we have larger and larger companies in here, and more and more complex structures. There's a lot more questions about visibility of the individual sections, and it's worth thinking about, what do you want to show people? I mean, core values and your purpose, cause, passion sections are typically things you want to have pretty wide open. You want to really be show up as yourself in every one of those conversations as much as you possibly can. But if you're editing, for instance, you're making changes, you're considering things, that would be a good reason to shut it down for a period of time. Like, hey, we're taking it offline while we're working on it. That's not a bad thing, but it's great to show that we're not making something up. It's right here for you to look at every single day, because these should be part of your focus filters or how you make decisions. These are things we will do and things we won't do. And the more you get everybody really embedded in that thinking, the more you're starting to get everyone rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. And I feel like the vision page is always a great place to start, because it's like, all right, you can sit down and think about this and know, all right, I'll share this with the rest of the company. This makes sense. Where it might start to get hard and maybe uncomfortable is when you hit the second tab and you're getting into maybe some of your actual numbers here. And it's like, what revenue, what profit, what goals are you sharing? So I mean, I know for us internally, it's like transparency there. And I think that's one thing that a lot of companies using 90 are just continually working towards, is how to create that high trust organization where these are easy to share and talk about.
It's a struggle for a lot of my clients though. And I mean, one of the strategies around that is you have quarterly, monthly, and annual tabs in the scorecard. So if you want to have just specific numbers there, and then have some way of translating that, something you're more comfortable talking about, to your vision page, I think that's a fine strategy. One of my clients has a 1 through 4 metric for how profit is doing, because they don't really want to talk about the number.
Yeah.
But they have a target where they're trying to get to. If it's above where they wanted to go, that's one number. If it's below where they wanted to go, if they're in trouble, it's down to a 1. Hey, we got to tighten our belts a little bit. We got to hold off on things, and then you have to figure out how to translate that to everybody so they know what that means to them for how they're going to get compensated. What things we can go. Hey, we want to do our meet. We want to do this great big thing, but we can't do it until we get out of 1. We got to get up to 3 again, so we're above target before we can do that. So, but there's ways of managing through that. Though one of the reasons you want to show some of that stuff is you have 3-year, 1-year, and quarterly objectives, things you're trying to get to, and it's tremendously important to start sharing with people where you're going tactically. So, people can get pretty cynical about, oh, we got this vision for we're going to make the world a better place. Whatever. But when you start showing that I have a path to that thing, and these are the things we're going to do, and then when at state of the company meeting, you start sharing what you did and didn't get done, and owning up for the things you failed at, that goes a long way to building the kind of trust where now I can start to believe that you're telling me the truth, that I don't have to filter everything you do. I don't have to be cynical about what you're doing, because you're willing to share with me. Maybe I'm willing to step up and get theirs too. But you got to go first as a leadership team. If you want people to trust you, you got to go first.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Like, once you have cascaded your vision, it's going to be great for each department to then go back and think about, how am I actually going to help us get there? And that's when you get into, hey, each department can now have our own vision, goals, rocks, it's all flowing up into the same document. So that's when you would really see your different teams having information here as well.
I get so many stories the last 2 months, Christine, of people saying that people 2, 3 tiers down suddenly stepping up and taking, like, hey, I got that. I'll take care of that. Because they can see how what their work is doing is going to play into this larger story. There's like we're doing something together. We're gonna, if we work on this, we're gonna have the best barn ever. So we all want to feel like we're part of the community that's accomplishing something. That is our nature as humans. So you got to give people visibility to what's it going to look like. It isn't just profit for the shareholders. It's together we're going to create this thing, and we're going to be doing these things, and we're going to be solving these problems, and we're going to. Every day we're making progress towards something we all believe in, but you need to reiterate that the quarterly state of the company is part of how you reconnect everybody to that. Gino didn't invent it, but he talks about it a lot. We've been to fray every 90 days. Our little newly not monkey brain, the frontal lobe only goes so far before we need to get kind of reassert and go, okay, that's right, that's what we're up to. Got it.
So to get to that point, this is my next slide, of actually being able to have those departmental visions ready, and like teams are running their weekly meetings in there. Oftentimes companies go through this kind of manager training. And so, Jim, I know you already offered, he does have a resource on this. If you want it, throw your email in the chat right here, or just ask us about it later through the 90 chat. But maybe you can talk through some of these objectives of doing that.
Yeah, so and some of the coaches on here, I know I've done some of these trainings for people. So correct me if I'm wrong. Joe's got a version of this. So it's important to have a way that you can specifically to have your managers learn how to do the very specific things that they have to do well, and because they want to be able to do it confidently. That's why I put it in the italics. They must confidently run the weekly meeting. Where in EOS is called the level 10 meeting. In others, it's the weekly tactical meeting. So, but there's lots of different ways of calling it. But that weekly meeting is where the rubber hits the road on the operating system, and everyone needs to feel like that's a great use of time. And to do that, they have to be able to operate the meeting, know what the meeting looks like, and have each of the tools that presented in the weekly meeting really understand what it's supposed to be about. So you need to spend some time telling them things. We talk about teaching concepts, tools, and disciplines. They need to have a time to really hear that in a class or mentoring session, and they be able to ask questions, because they've got to be able to not, while during progress, where they're supposed to be making progress every day, outside of that realm, be able to say, wait, I don't really get it. So we're doing this because why? And be able to hear the answer. Because it's no, we have to say it 7 times. No one's going to absorb it the first time through, but give them a chance to pick up on it. So dedicate yourself. I do on depending on how bought in your teams are. I do a 3, and I do this for all people joining 90, 3 2-hour sessions, and that tends to be enough. But we live it every day. Other companies need more time. I know Joe does 3 half-day sessions. Is that right, Joe? Remind me. So there's a couple different ways of building this out. But you cover that meetings. You got to have them to be able to do good quarterly reviews. It's not complicated. It's a very simple tool, the reviews tool, but it's well guided so that people are getting the feedback. So there's really them teaching them to be better managers in that very, executable, hey, I need to give you feedback. And once again, asking the right questions. Are you a good fit for the core values? And going through each of the core values and say, can I think of times you've demonstrated this core value? Yes, no, or you've not demonstrated the anti-value. And having that, learning to have that conversation. These are the roles you're supposed to be playing. Here's the numbers you're supposed to be delivering on. Question by question. Hey, tell me about this. Hey, you had some rocks. You didn't get your rocks done. So this is a great way to create really impactful quarterly reviews. And they have to learn how to read the VTO or the vision page or whatever, however you're cascading the SVEP, and be able to share that with everybody else. They need to be able to learn it, interpret it, and be able to share that story. And anybody that's getting reporting to them should have rocks. Yeah. That's how I teach my clients. If you've got people reporting to you, you have visibility over how things are. Rocks are about building new things or fixing things. It's building or fixing. That's what we do with rocks. So they have visibility on what needs to be fixed or what needs to be built. And you want to enable them, because that's one of the best ways to start giving them some responsibility so they can start growing as leaders. So managing their time appropriately, prioritizing things, being able to report back on how the rock advances or doesn't. These are all great structures to help people become better leaders, but also to be a great leader, right, in the moment. And the tools give you the guardrails, but you got to get to confidence. If they have confidence, then they're going to execute at it, and people will follow them. People want to have a confident leader.
Well, and I think it's great to split it up over multiple sessions. And Joe, even to your point, like having that week to week spacing as well feels important, because if these managers aren't bought in at the end of this training, then surely their teams are not going to be bought in. And then you're just going to be having communication conflict, whatever it is, happening from one department to the other, when it should be really this way that every department can really work together.
And buy-in is the predictor of success with your operating system, right? Yeah. When people ask us which operating system is right for me, what's the answer? The one you're going to follow. Yeah. Don't learn the rules well so you can break them well, my friends, and just really dig in, master it before you start making up your own stuff as you go along, because I promise you there's more in there than you realize.
All right, so what do we have in here? So let's showcase a couple things that are great to go over, which is especially editing that meeting agenda. Whoops, go back. And so with that, we'll show you how to edit the weekly and then also the quarterly, and you can create custom meeting types now as well. So I think all of that's really great to highlight, because as you're going through and doing this manager training, you want them to be thinking about what's going to be the most productive meeting for my team to have every single week. How am I going to get the right issues bubbling up? And so it's not going to be really a one size fits all for every department. And I would really encourage and lean into that for each individual team member, have them bring ideas to the table of what should be in here.
Yes.
So top right on your meetings page, if you have a 90 account, you should all see that so you can even follow along. I'm editing the leadership team right now. Usually this one stays pretty much close to the same. So if I want to go and edit one of my departmental meetings, I'll click on marketing for right now. This is where you can decide which of these should be visible. If I don't need one, I can go ahead and turn it off. And if I want to add a new section, I can do that as well. So maybe I'm on the marketing team, or this is a sales / marketing, and I want to pull up the HubSpot deal board, Yep. I want to pull up my reporting that's very specific to Google Analytics. whatever those things are going to be, that's going to help you bubble up the issues is what you want to pull in. And then it often happens, Jim, you can maybe speak a little bit more to this, where maybe you don't need a whole 60 minutes for IDS. Maybe you want to just drop that down to 30, and each team can kind of figure out, how am I sticking within more of like a hour window instead of going the full 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, so this really goes to the prime concept of the weekly meeting is you want to sweep through all the things that have a weekly scope that I need to make sure they're on track, that are heading the right direction, and trying to find issues, things that really need to be addressed. And when I say issues in this context, I really typically am talking about the problem issues. So I'm looking at my scorecard. So I've got some numbers in my scorecard that I want to say, is there anything wrong with it? Everything on track? Everything okay? If not, I'm going to drop it to the bottom. I'm going to make it an issue. So if you're in a department, you've probably got some working in the business systems that we're going to bubble up issues. So is it HubSpot? Is it your sales projections? Is it your if you're in finance, is it your 90 days late payment? So what are the things, cash projection, things that other systems are doing for you? You can embed them in here, and it gives you a chance to, in context of that, create that little 5-minute segment and go, is this okay? Are we on track, off track? And did we be able to create an issue out of that? I mean, if you do put, and you'll see there like the HubSpot deal board, you could drop almost any outside URL in there.
Yeah.
Caveat, your mileage may vary, but it's an iframe type situation. So a lot of our systems, we've worked with our vendors to say, hey, we need to be able to drop your iframe in here. If you've got a system that you want to be able to drop in there, let us know. We do have a process for that, but it does actually go out and pull it back in. So you could, I think you have to put the real URL in there, actually.
Yeah, I was just trying something fun, but
I know. That's cool. So drop those things in there and figure out what those systems are, and make sure you talk through them enough that you're capturing all the right things. Because we adjust it on a regular basis in all of my teams.
Yeah.
But that's typically a change you're going to make there. You're going to shorten the meeting, and you're going to add some working in the business resources to the meeting so that you can review those for any issues that might be bubbling up. I mean, you don't, the danger there is putting too much in there. Like, you still want to use the same filter to what's the minimum amount of stuff to know, so I could know, is my business on track or off track? So, don't put a giant, visualization thing with 50 charts in it right there, because you're going to waste time looking at all those, trying to interpret them. Your filter is, what's something that I can scan, know whether it's on track or off track, and just to make sure I'm collecting all of the issues in my business that I can solve in this time frame.
Yep, exactly. Because most of it will go to the scorecard. You don't want to have 15 sections in here where you're going to different dashboards or whatever it is. Like, try and still turn things into measurables. If the measurable's an issue, it's got a link in it to whatever that system is, so you can dive into the weeds and the issues if it comes to that. So
cool.
Yeah. The other thing I do want to highlight too, I'll get out of editing this one, is being able to create a new meeting type. So if your teams run daily stand-ups, or if you want to do like a monthly, like rock check-in, or like whatever it is, you can create a new meeting type. So I'll say monthly meeting. I can go ahead and add specific sections. So maybe I want to do a welcome here. And it's, I put my notes down of what question I want to ask, and then I can even pull in specific tools as well. So if I want to do a data review, knowing that we'll go look at the monthly measurables, or I want to put in, make sure we're still on track with hitting what we said we were going to hit by the end of the quarter. All of those are great. Create your meeting type, go ahead and save it, and then it will just be on that specific team that you've added it to.
Yeah, a couple of things to point out here is that there's a lot of our dev team's done a really great job, and I appreciate that, because I don't sometimes forget about it, is every little nugget inside of 90 has its own URL, like to an insane degree. So you can actually grab the URL for a very specific thing, like the monthly scorecard, and drop it in here and know that's what's going to come up. And when you're not clicking around, it's not cumbersome. It's pretty straightforward. So that's what, there's a couple reasons for this. One, a lot of operating systems have specific meetings that are supposed to go on these different cadences, and that's just fine. Yeah, like that. So that is the monthly one. It comes right up. I'm not looking at the other stuff because once again, I'm trying to maintain focus on what's really supposed to be talked about in this meeting, not to let us get off track. The other thing is we have other cadences. So I know in our team, and this is something I've done for a lot of my teams over the years, is we have a daily stand-up. It's a very Scrum-based thing. 3 questions. What are you working on today? What did you work on yesterday? What's getting in the way? And so it's really as simple as that. We don't want to go any more than that, but it's a daily check-in. We feel like we're humans together. We haven't, it isn't like I don't go a week without seeing everybody, but I need to get out of there quick too. I just want to make sure that nothing's dying. And then you have one-to-ones. So you can create a team for a one-to-one with somebody and figure out what the right cadence for that and build a very specific meeting for that. So I'm loving everything they've done here to make it so you can really think about what is the right cadence for this team right now with the right stuff in it. So I'm remaining perfectly connected and I fully know what's going on. There's nothing to slip through the cracks.
Yeah. And what I'm doing right now is editing things specifically for this team, the leadership team. If you have where it's like, hey, any new team that's getting created, I just want them to have this, and then they can go in and change it if they need to. In the settings area, there's now a meetings page. And so within there, you can go ahead and set what your defaults are for any of the meeting types, but you can have a new agenda. So like, every team is just going to get this monthly agenda. It's in this case only going to get applied to like new teams that you create, but if you're still going to cascade, that's totally fine. And then each team can go in and edit it individually on their meetings page.
And how many different teams can I have inside 90, Christine?
Man, unlimited. I wonder if we have the most. That would be a fun stat to look up.
That's right. You can have as many teams as you want, and they become archived elements. You can resort them by putting Z's in front of them and things like that. But don't hesitate to create teams for things you're trying to get done, and we're trying to organize a set of people. So cross departmental teams, multifunction teams, one-to-ones. These are all great places to create a team. It's very specific. So I do some one-to-one business executive coaching with some of my clients, and we just create a team inside their instance where and because I'm a coach, I can have access to all the teams. But we can create elements from that. And there's things it's a private team, so just me and that client see it. Or actually, it's not a private team because if it's private, I can't see it. Right.
If you're on it, you can. Oh, but you're not on it. Yeah,
I'm not on it. So that's right. Yeah. So So we should talk about that before we get out of here.
Yeah. So you want to talk about private teams?
Yeah. Let's talk about the 3 different types.
Where's my mouse? Uh-oh. I hope it didn't die.
So scanning back over here. Hey, April, great job. She got the rock star award for core values. I like it.
Yeah, I really love that. Let's open.
All right.
Am I still with you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see if my mouse moves now.
There you go. Yeah, Joel's asking about where to create a team, so we'll get to see all that.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully. Letting you move things?
No, it's not.
I can take over.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Phew.
Oof.
Well,
yeah, you can always take over my screen if you need to, but hopefully that worked out well. So to create teams, you're going to go to the bottom left in the settings area, and then under your company settings is where you'll find teams. So this is where you can go in and create additional ones. So here's the list of ones I've already created. If I wanted to create another one here, we'll do that. Add yourself as a team member. That's on by default. You can uncheck it if it's for somebody else. But once you've created it, this just signifies that I'm specifically on that team. The 3 options to the right here are leadership team. So that's probably not going to change. Leave that as is, because that's actually going to affect like what the main vision in your company is. Project means that, hey, this is probably ad hoc, it's across departmental, it's something where you really don't need that vision for that individual team. So essentially checking that off means the marketing team is now not going to have a specific vision page. So that's that option. And then private is where only the people on that team can physically see it. So an owner still has full reign over the account, and they could come into settings and put themselves on a private team if they wanted to, but they're still not going to see it in their drop down if they're not on it. So that makes it like great for the one-on-one same page kind of meetings that you guys are holding, where it's only between a few people.
Yeah, because if you're not familiar, we've done it hasn't been me, man. I just chat. There's a lot of people that a lot of our developer folks have done a lot to make it so you can move stuff around between teams. So assigning things to teams. Hey, I've got an issue, I'm going to put on the other team. Oh, make that an issue for that meeting over there. And so there's a lot of that can go on. So if there's meetings you don't want to have in that list, either because you don't want the list to be like a billion things long, or because I just don't want anybody assigning me something on that team, then and one-on-ones are a great example. So, or if you're doing something that's highly sensitive,
Right.
it's going to, so the transaction's coming that we can't let everyone know about yet. A use case of recent in my world. So,
anything else we should cover with the manager concept in here of other stuff we should go through? I think we've talked about feedback a lot on here. This is another really good thing to introduce during that manager training to make sure that they're doing that. So I'm happy to like get in the weeds on some of this stuff.
We've got some great meetings. We just talked about this in depth, but
like for an hour and a half. So
right,
you can really get in the weeds.
But it's the value of this isn't just that you have a standard approach to feedback. It really is, and the thing I've appreciated how much more impactful it is. Your younger managers, your less sophisticated managers need this kind of structure and guidance to give great feedback, and everyone gets better for it. The people receiving the feedback, the people giving the feedback. So it is the notion of the quarterly conversations, they call it in EOS, of having these are the questions we're going to talk about today, so we know what's happens going into it. That's one of the principles of meetings in your business operating system. Is if I know what the agenda is, I know what the topics are, then I can do a better job of being prepared for it, as opposed to surprised. Surprised is not a good business practice. Let's be prepared. Let's be prepared rather than surprised, always. And one of the ways is having a solid agenda. So quarterly feedback has an agenda. But there's particulars of that are just, if you aren't doing it yet, if you haven't figured out a way to support your managers in giving really good, valuable, actionable insight, it's part of the feedback mechanism, you have to start teaching that right away. It matters a lot. That's how, if you've got an attrition problem, it's probably that.
Yeah. And none of this, so Joe asked a question, like, is the same page format preloaded in here? Is any of those meeting types I was discussing, is any of that preloaded in here? It's not. It's in settings, you could create it as preloaded if like you went in and created a new meeting agenda here, but it would be on each company to go through and do that.
Yeah, unless it's part of your operating system template. So
correct.
If you were, I know, for instance, I know one of the operating systems is Pinnacle. Pinnacle has a very specific monthly meeting agenda for financial review, and that would be preloaded when you start out with them. But that's every you should know that you can create that as a default for your business. I know we have one coach in here that's been focusing on franchises. That's one of the places where we'd see that being used. Every time you get a new franchise location, they would have all that. Anything you create with your template gets applied.
All right. So new hire training process. I think maybe the last thing in this presentation of like the big topics, when you're thinking about cascading, because it's like, one, having that state of the company reoccurring, two, making sure managers are trained, and then to make sure new people coming on board are going to follow all these same processes. typically it's great when you can have an onboarding rock for anybody that's joining.
Yeah.
And I'll show you how we do that in the process section, which I think is so helpful. And then the rock can just be tweaked a bit for like who it is. Is it just a general employee? So it's more pointing to processes and accountability chart and those things, or is it for a manager or leadership team member where they need to like get in the weeds a bit more?
100%. I mean, you just gotta, follow the 7 times rule, give everyone a chance to really, get to mastery. It's not about, it's never enough to say, well, I told them, if that's part of your management style, then you're in trouble, brother. It's like, have I done enough to make sure they really understand? If I've done that, they're still not doing what they should do, then we know what the problem is. But if it's on me to make sure you had every opportunity, if you're reporting to me, to learn what you need to learn to do well. That's the whole point of onboarding someone. Like, let's make sure I'm doing a good job as a manager and giving you what you need to succeed. Training them in the operating system is one of the things. And there's, very much like the manager training, we're having a class setting where they get to ask questions outside of the normal flow of business. Should be part of that. A lot of my clients have videos, and I actually help them build videos to teach some of these things in their specific way. There's also, depending on what your operating system is, there's probably a book or two that references all these things. I think in EOS, they commonly hand out what the heck is EOS, which is like the dummies guide to the terms of EOS. But giving people a couple swipes at it, understanding you've got various types of learners in your, joining your business, and giving them the tools they need so they can get there. And most importantly, so they can understand whether they get it or not. Right. So that they have to be able to have that, give them the opportunity to know whether they understand or not is really the key.
Yeah. And what I really like about putting it into 90 is like, it can be a bit more self-paced for them. To your point, like you've got a lot of different styles of learners in there. So 100%. I'll jump into 90 and we'll show a little bit about like how you would go through and create that process. And since observers can see it too, like, again, there's no harm in just getting everyone in there as soon as they're hired and just make them an observer role, so that they have the context that they need. Let's see. So this is how we do it. I found it helpful. So again, you might have another method, but we have an HR core process. And within there, we've built out like, hey, I should have found the account that had the default one in there. Hey, here's our rock that's default in here for manager training. And so you can build out and type everything in here. Like, okay, the outcome should be XYZ. And then here's the bullet points, and they're linked to the core values video. And so you can have all the links and resources in one place for them to go through and actually set milestones about when they think they're going to be able to read and get those things done and report back on them.
If you've ever done some surveying or interviewing of new employees and ask them what frustrations were, it's like trying to get to the point where I feel like I'm not new here, and all different places where things are stored. I mean, we're creating content and materials all over the place, and everyone's got a slightly different way of managing it. So creating a central place like our process tool to aggregate all those things, and there's links out to stuff and meta description of what it is, so you can search against it in one place, as opposed to, for us, we're a Google shop, so we've got Drive, and there's now we've got 100 people, so there's a lot of Drive going on, and as part of that, it's next to impossible to do the curation without a tool like this. So curate the materials people need to feel successful, and the judgment, which again, the focus filter for that onboarding rock is to get to the end of 90 days. Do I still feel like I'm new here? Right? Because for me, and for me, it's because I'm a grumpy old man. I don't like to hear it when people say, well, I'm just the new guy. It's like, I never want to hear those words again. Yeah. There you go. So it's a great one. So there's the onboarding rock, and we have onboarding rocks at 90 as a general HR onboarding rock, and then each of the departments has their own specialized onboarding rock. And it's just a place to start dumping all the things that are really important for being part of our culture, our team, our operation.
Yeah. And like I said, like, link out to things like they're going to get the core value speech, and now they're on the YouTube page and can see what's out there. And it's like, it's just an opportunity for them to just continue to see your company and hopefully the different ways that you've presented itself, you know, online and into the universe.
We have a new employee on our team, Christine, and we were asking her today how things are going. She's like, I got this meeting, and then we're doing a stand up. What you did yesterday, what I'm doing today, and I spent this much time on just the onboarding materials. It's a lot of stuff, but I'm so glad because I don't, I just feel like I'm really, everything's well documented. I know where everything is at. And the reality is, I find with my clients, when I say, well, do you have something like this? Oh yeah, we have it. Where is? And I ask next question, where is it? And everyone goes, oh, right.
Yeah.
But the confidence to be able to say it's in the process tool. It's in the onboarding rock. That's where you find it. So if I update it, I got one place to go to make sure that people have the new resources. And and you want to, like everything else, you want to ask the question. It has to have an owner in the process, and that's important because the discipline of this is making sure it's right.
Yeah.
So, and every quarter, you should be looking at your processes and asking, is this still accurate? Right? It's like you look at your accountability chart. Is everyone still have time to do their job well? That's that question there. That with in every seat owns processes and measurables. Are my measurables set with the right goals for the quarter? Are my processes still accurate so that when people follow them, they're actually doing the right thing?
Yeah, you can connect your measurables to these processes as well. So if I open this up, you can tie measurables to these, just like you can do when you're on the scorecard. You can connect them to the accountability chart seats for that person. So yeah. I'm definitely excited. Hopefully, like sometime next year, we can get out there like, okay, how are my seats looking? Like red, yellow, green, super basic, based on the measurables that are connected either to the processes that they own or the ones that they own on the scorecard and things like that. I think there's going to be a lot of power in like having that kind of interconnected within here.
Absolutely. Just see where, which teams need more support right now, which ones are struggling with what we've given them to do, and then ask the right questions. Is it a clarity? Do they have enough support? Do they have the right people in the right seats? We have questions for it, but we just don't have the insight right now. So it's going to be a powerful addition.
Yeah, you can do a lot in here. So I found it helpful to like at least document things at a high level, even if you don't have every nitty-gritty detail in here and you want to link out to the video or the document or whatever it is, but one place to just showcase it is really nice.
Better and better.
Yeah. All right. Oh, well, we were ahead of ourselves. We already went through this.
Yeah, I think we did it.
Project teams.
The question came up. I actually got a chance to just yesterday to use the leadership team button because we're doing a reorg, so didn't want to crush the old leadership team.
Yep. Just
renamed it, but I created a new leadership team for the new leadership in the reorg for the next. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden, because they had to have, we're setting rocks, and they needed to have the company rocks. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that takes us to the end. I got the couple emails of you guys down, the three of you that sent it over. So again, if you want any of those resources, especially about that manager training that we have, feel free to send over your email. But other than that, happy to answer any other questions that people have now.
Perfect.
And if there's none, we can let you go.
Yeah, good luck with your, some people said they had annuals coming up. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Best day of the year is your annual session getting started.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll look forward to having you all back next year.
Yep. More to come. Thanks so much. See you guys.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.